Hey everyone, welcome to The Goods from the Woods. What you're about to hear is part 2 of a very special crossover episode that we did with one of our favorite podcasts, This Is Rad. If you've not heard part 1, it's basically Pat, Goodnight, and me explaining the history of professional wrestling to Kyle, Matt, and Natalie on stage at the Nerdist Theater on Sunset Strip here in Los Angeles to an audience of 1, that being our good friend Brent Schmidt, who is a hilarious comedian and was the guest on episode 32 of this podcast. And speaking of which, if you're listening because you're a fan of This Is Rad and you've never heard our show before, we got a lot of stuff you're going to like. You can listen back to our archives. I mean, we had our Halloween episode with Kyle and Natalie a couple weeks ago. We've had Kyle on the show on several occasions, even guest hosted for Pat on episode 38 that we did about tourist traps. And I swear that we're going to have solo episodes with Burnside and producer Natalie in the near future because the folks who do This Is Rad are genuinely 3 of our favorite people and some of our closest friends. And we love those guys. So those episodes are coming up, but go back and listen to our archive. It's good stuff. So anyway, here's how this episode is going to work. In our This Is Rad episode, which you can get now on iTunes from last week, we talked about the history of the business of professional wrestling. And in this episode, we showed the folks from This Is Rad a small sampling of some of our favorite matches and promos, along with some of the ridiculous, lame bullshit that you can see in wrestling, because that's definitely part of it too. So instead of showing them just one great pay-per-view like WrestleMania 3, we essentially curated our own pay-per-view. We made a mixtape with Pat, Goodnight, and I each showing one great match, one bad match that still has entertainment value, and one memorable or significant promo. And as you'll hear, it kind of worked, I think. I think they might watch wrestling now. We'll see. If you'd like to follow along at home, you can watch almost all of these matches on the WWE Network, or if you're not into the whole paying money thing, you can also watch them all on DailyMotion. So just type in any of the keywords that I'm about to say, and you should be able to find all of the matches that we review today. So here we go. My great match is Sasha Banks versus Baylee for the NXT Women's Championship at NXT Takeover Brooklyn. That was from August 22nd of 2015. My bad match is Shawn Michaels versus Hulk Hogan at SummerSlam 2005 from August 21st, 2005. My promo is the famous CM Punk pipe bomb promo from WWE Raw in Las Vegas. That was from June 27th of 2011. Pat's great match is Tomohiro Ishii versus Tomoaki Hanma at New Japan Pro Wrestling Power Struggle. That was from November 7th of 2015, so like a week and a half ago. Pat's bad match is Gerald Briscoe versus Pat Patterson in an evening gown match for the WWF Hardcore Championship at WWF's King of the Ring from June 25th, 2000. And Pat's promo is Don Morocco's Madison Square Garden cage promo from September 24th, 1983. Mr. Goodnight's good match is Rowdy Roddy Piper versus Greg the Hammer Valentine in the dog collar match at Starrcade from November 24th of 1983. Mr. Goodnight's bad match is Tony Atlas versus Ted Arcidi on WWF television from August 9th, 1986. And Goodnight's promo is Ted DiBiase's basketball promo from WWF Superstars sometime in 1987, and that one's super famous, so just Google Ted DiBiase basketball and it will definitely come up. Those are the matches. We kind of rushed into this thing so fast that I forgot to do plugs, so we'll do that now. Follow Kyle Clark on Twitter at Kyle Clark is Rad. Burnside is at Matthew Burnside, and producer Natalie is at Natalie Hazen. Their show is called This Is Rad. They're at This Is Rad Pod. We're at The Goods Pod. So tweet at them, tweet at us, tweet at Steve Austin BSR and tell him to do our podcast, for God's sakes. Anyway, tell us what you liked. Give us any suggestions for other matches. What we should be watching. I know one guy was mad that we didn't talk about the Montreal Screwjob in our history of wrestling, and I acknowledge that that was a serious error. But if you want to know what that is, listen to that. They actually did a Radio Lab episode about the Montreal Screwjob and how the blurring of kayfabe and reality was also essential to the works of Miguel de Cervantes. NPR, right? All right, time for talking's over. Let's do some more talking. Let's do the damn thing. The Goods from the Woods crossover, episode 66. This is The Woods. Talking wrestling, folks.
Now fix to start kicking ass, just like it said at the beginning of the program.
Man of the hour, tower of power, too sweet to be sour.
Sending your ass on the jabroni jet to the other side of the territory, brother.
The Alabama Hammer.
Nightmares are the best part of my day.
The Goods from the Woods.
Hot damn!
Welcome to the Goods from the Woods. My name is Rivers Langley.
Patrick Michael P.S. Riley.
Coming out of the woods, a little bit of goods. Mr. Good Man of the Hour, Tower of Power, too sweet to be sour.
And this is part 2 of a crossover episode. So if
This is the Rad from the Woods, man.
the Goods from the Rads. The
This
Rads.
is the Woods.
This is the Woods. This is my favorite version.
I think that's what we settled on. This is the Woods. Welcome to This is the Woods. If you've not heard part 1, go subscribe to This Is Rad on iTunes and check out the episode marked Wrestling. It's me, Pat, and Goodnight, along with our 3 guests who I'll introduce in just a moment, basically doing a short audio book about the history of professional wrestling. And this is part 2, and we are finally showing Burnside has some experience with wrestling, right?
Oh, yeah, I've watched a few slobber knockers in my days.
And Kyle and Natalie are completely uninitiated.
Kyle's not. Kyle.
No, I only know it as a pop culture reference the same way I know everything as a pop culture
exactly,
reference.
Yeah.
This is more wrestling I think right now that we just watched than I have watched since that sleepover I went to in 8th grade.
Oh, really? It was probably better.
We watched one of the WrestleManias. I don't remember which one.
If it was 8th, was it the most recent?
No, I think it was like an older one. Something with The Undertaker.
I mean, you had a sleepover.
Yeah.
6 months ago.
No, I meant at the time because
Yeah.
because we're almost exactly the same age. So
Yes, so it would have
8th grade,
been,
that would've been
I think it was 7th grade, and so it would have been...
WrestleMania 98 was fucking strong.
Might have been that.
Yeah. Was Mike Tyson involved?
I have no memory. I remember it was
Okay.
it was a bargaining chip where I wanted us to watch Halloween H2O,
and they wanted to watch Halloween Havoc.
and they yes, and they wanted to watch wrestling, and so we worked that out.
Right.
So we both watched both.
A lot of things in your life revolve around convincing people to watch Halloween H2O.
Look, guys, when you believe in a product as much as I do.
I think this should be our second crossover because I've never seen Halloween H2O.
Oh, really? Oh,
so-
it's
Is this a movie?
yeah, it was
Not a type of bottled water?
It is not, but it should be. It's that level of quality title. It's the Halloween movie that took place 20 years later, where like Jamie Lee Curtis was like back on because her career had plateaued to the point where she was willing to revisit the franchise.
So Donald Pleasance wasn't in it?
No, I think he gets killed in Halloween 4.
That's a spoiler.
Yeah. No, it's the one after Season Witch when they went back to having Michael Myers in
okay,
it.
yeah. The way we're basically to do this episode, instead of we were thinking originally the best way to expose you guys to wrestling would be to show you a pay-per-view, which is typically about 6 matches.
Yeah.
And we realized that a better way would be for us to essentially curate our own pay-per-view.
Yeah, you made us a pay-per-view.
Right. So each one of us will be showing you
2
guys
matches and a promo.
2 matches and a promo. So 2 matches one match that we think is like
Good. One that is bad.
and one that is bad but entertaining, and then a promo.
Just to kind of clarify for people, a pay-per-view usually lasts for 3 hours, and usually there's kind of there can be good matches, there can be bad matches, but there's a lot of in the middle. There's a lot of matches that are relatively average, and we just wanted to cut that sort of thing. And for those of you that responded on Twitter, some of you kind of wanted a little bit
thanks
more.
everybody for listening.
Yeah.
It's been
Yeah.
exciting. People have really
you.
lit up over this
Yeah.
one.
For those of you that aren't initiated to wrestling, a promo is basically an interview segment or the talking aspect of wrestling. To cut a promo means to promote the show or to promote a character. So that's what we're doing. Two matches and a promo.
So when I'm like, listen, brother, Pat Riley, you've had it too good too long.
This Sunday
I'm taking you down this Sunday
at this specific time on this
at
specific
7 p.m.
network
at the MGM in Las Vegas.
Right, that's a promo.
Ooh.
It's 1 master's degree versus 2 master's degrees. I am taking your degrees.
We got the MGM Grand. I would settle for Circus. I think that's the level that we're
There's no clowning around in this match. All I've wanted to do for days now is just cut 100 wrestling promos. It's the one thing I've caught on with so far with wrestling is promos are the greatest thing in the world.
Oh yeah.
I think all of mine would be pre-recorded audio-wise, so that it seems like I was just telepathically
Matthew Burnside,
talking
I'm here
down
to
to
challenge your
people.
promo game. See, it's all I want to do.
Let's actually start.
All
with
right, so here we go.
Start with the one that I just showed. So the promo I showed is, I'd say, I don't know. You guys can jump on me if I'm wrong. I would say the most significant, memorable promo of the last probably 5-6 years. I mean, of recent
CM
memory.
Punk,
Yeah.
2011.
So if you don't know, CM Punk was a very, very successful independent wrestler. He wrestled for Ring of Honor. He wrestled for New Japan. He wrestled for all of these independent promotions before being hired by the WWE in 2006 and basically being underutilized for 5 years leading up until this promo, or at least in his mind and in the mind of a lot of wrestling fans, because once you get to the WWE, they pretty much, no matter how high you've risen in the past, traditionally they knock your ass back down to the bottom and you have to kind of work your way up. So the people who are smart fans that have been watching CM Punk in the indies for years watched him just kind of flail around in WWE. Like, he'd won championships and stuff like that, but he was never that top guy. And he was pissed about it, basically, and was his contract was legitimately coming up after the night after the next pay-per-view in June of 2011, which was Money in the Bank. And he delivered this promo where
he literally challenged the entire WW concept.
Sitting crisscross applesauce style.
Sitting crisscross applesauce. He delivers a speech where he challenges everything about WWE.
He strikes me as like the Mark Maron of wrestling. Just the sitting down, the glowering expression, the bitterness.
It's not bad.
I don't hate you, John. I don't even dislike you. I do like you. I like you a hell of a lot more than I like most people in the back. I hate this idea that you're the best. Because you're not. I'm the best. I'm the best in the world. There's one thing you're better at than I am, and that's kissing Vince McMahon's ass.
This is where wrestling gets really fucking confusing, because we mentioned on the This Is Rad episode about the terms work and shoot. Work being part of the storyline,
and he's shooting the work,
and shooting being saying something that's true or actually doing something. What we just watched is called a worked shoot. In that the WWE handed CM Punk a microphone and was like, "Say whatever you want about us." So it's him legitimately airing his grievances, but also maintaining the storyline. And it's still a promo because he talks about how he's going to kick John Cena's ass on a specific day. And then he's like, "I'm going to take the WWE Championship and leave."
I'm leaving with the WWE Championship on July 17th. And who knows? Maybe I'll go defend it in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Maybe I'll go back to Ring of Honor.
And so that's like the threat that he's issuing, basically, is that he's going to win the championship and fucking walk out with it, which is exactly what happened. They re-signed him the night before the pay-per-view and didn't tell anybody. So he won the championship, hops over the rail, literally blows Vince McMahon a kiss goodbye and leaves through the crowd. And it's like the most like triumphant, like I was personally like, this is the greatest fucking thing I've ever seen. Because all the shit he's saying in this promo is exactly the problems that I have with WWE, where they don't let the people who are, the most talented succeed because they've succeeded somewhere else. So that's somehow a detriment to their business model.
For almost 6 years, I have proved to everybody in the world that I am the best on this microphone, in that ring, even at commentary. Nobody can touch me. And yet, no matter how many times I prove it, I'm not on your lovely little collector cups. I'm not on the cover of the program. I'm barely promoted. I don't get to be in movies. I'm certainly not on any crappy show on the USA Network. I'm not on the poster of WrestleMania. I'm not in the signature that's produced at the start of the show. I'm not on Conan O'Brien. I'm not on Jimmy Fallon. But the fact of the matter is I should be. And trust me, this isn't sour grapes. But the fact that Dwayne is in the main event of WrestleMania next year and I'm not makes me sick.
I thought it was interesting because, like, I'll go just a straight humble brag. I've met CM Punk a couple of times.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And my first thing that I would say is regardless of anything else, if we can figure out a way to cover up that guy's tattoos, he should be playing Wolverine, not Hugh Jackman.
Oh, really?
He's the perfect size to muscle ratio.
That's
and when
true.
he enjoys a sideburn, that fuck should be playing Wolverine in everything ever.
Yeah.
Like that's how he should retire his career. Stop trying to fight things and just be the movie star you're clearly supposed to be.
Yeah.
He's super.
Stop fake fighting people in the ring and fake fight people in green suits.
There we
that
go.
will be animated.
It all
over.
works out. But he's always seemed like kind of a grump to me, and I never understood why.
Yeah.
But I have to say, like after watching that, I was definitely like, all right, this is pretty badass.
Yeah.
Like, and it's clear that like this is a guy who's been jerked around by things for a long time. So like his grumpiness now makes more sense. Fucking contact Marvel, you motherfucker.
Oh, he writes for them. That's his job now.
Sure, that's great.
Yeah.
You know what?
Oh,
You know what's a
really?
mistake is going like, hey, why don't you write for us instead? Like, why don't you fucking
Be in all of our
like
stuff.
tell you what? How about we go to Las Vegas? We go to the Circus.
Yeah.
We have him and Hugh Jackman beat it out. He fucking caves in fucking that old Australian song and dance man's skull, and then just plays Wolverine.
Can I say this though? He ain't going to be Wolverine because he's just a skinny little thing. And the ladies love the ass of the Hugh Jackman when he wears the dungarees.
That's
and
true.
things like
That is
this.
true. That's true.
And that's why they go to see the movies.
Yeah,
'cause
you're
it's not
not
like
wrong.
they care
You're not
about that
wrong.
nerd stuff. Well, no, his ass will look good in the
Yeah,
dungarees.
it does look good in the dungarees. You are
Natalie-
correct.
That's
I'd
the
forgotten about the dungaree butt
It's like
factor.
watching Lorenzo Lamas, the Renegade. The whole thing. It's just tight dungarees and taking off his shirt and things like that.
Yeah, Natalie, as the resident straight woman here, how do you feel about his dungarees?
I actually don't find Hugh Jackman that attractive.
What?
I'm so glad you're here because I get to ask all the questions about everybody. What about CM Punk?
He's way more attractive than Hugh
Right?
Jackman.
There we
Yeah.
go. That's the new
I agree
generation.
with that.
We got it.
What did you think of the CM Punk
yeah,
thing?
yeah.
I mean, I thought it was great. It was badass. It was fun.
Yeah, and you felt
I don't know.
like
It's fun.
it felt really real.
Yeah.
too, because it
Almost
was.
too real. Like I said, he's like the Mark Maron of wrestling. It just
At
makes
one
people
point-
uncomfortable.
At one point, he literally turns to the camera and goes, "Oh, I'm breaking the fourth wall."
Yeah.
and waves at the camera.
See, I wish he hadn't have done that. That's the only thing I didn't
I-
like.
I
I hate
loved that.
breaking
That's
the
when he
fourth
said he
wall.
was going to rule the school with rock and roll. Like, he went too far.
Burnside, had you seen that promo before?
No. I'm actually not very familiar with CM Punk at all.
Okay, so I guess you kind of watched the Attitude Era and then
I got
Like an
out,
adult.
like probably like late Attitude Era. I'm like anything with like
Kurt Angle ish.
I think of like the
Yeah,
Attitude
yeah.
Era as like World War II, the way you guys describe it. Just know that. Like, you got out before like the surrender in the Pacific.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
It's kind of like that. That was how bad WWE 2003 through like
I heard a rumor
2011
about a
was.
nuke, and I was just like, I don't want to be
And
involved
the,
with
and
this
the
anymore.
WWE does kind of talk about the Attitude Era like it's the greatest generation too. So
Yeah, it's kind of the reason they're sort of fucked right now is because they've put so much emphasis on these old guys who were huge in 1998 that now that they're having a problem now because their whole roster is broken in half. Literally, like all their top stars are all out with injuries right now. So they're all like, "Oh God, what are we gonna do?" So they brought back Kane and Undertaker to like do something. So there's these two like 1,000-year-old men just fucking fighting on TV and shit.
The Big Show's back.
The Big Show's always back. Yeah.
And I'd like to think that maybe this company will be better after Vince McMahon's dead. But the fact is, it's going to get taken over by his idiotic daughter and his doofus son-in-law and the rest of his stupid family.
None of those things got addressed. He did have a run as the longest running champion of the modern era at a time in which John Cena was still promoted as the top guy, even though he wasn't the champion. And none of these issues got worked out.
can I ask a question?
He
What
left
is
the
the
company.
appeal of John Cena?
Yeah, I
He's
don't
not
get
as
it.
buff as the fucking
He wears
Purple Man.
jorts and knee pads.
Like fucking Dolph, or no, what's it? The Suplex City.
Lesnar.
Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
The Purple Man.
Purple Man. Grimace. I mean, Brock Lesnar.
He's not as big as Brock Lesnar. He's not as cool as CM Punk. As far as I can tell, it's a dude in athletic shoes and jorts.
And jorts.
Like he's like the stepdad you hope you don't get, but you do.
Well, if it makes you feel better, he's now wrestling in cargo shorts. So he's
All right,
he's
I'm back.
traded up.
I'm back on board.
I can explain. John Cena's appeal is with women and young kids.
But he looks like a monster.
So essentially, what for young kids, the
Young
whole
kids,
thing-
I get.
But
Like,
for the young kids thing, the appeal is that when young kids get like beat up by bullies, they kind of have that thing. It's like, I wish I could be really big and beat the bullies up. And essentially, that's what John Cena is. It's the fantasy
that you
of little
morph
kids.
into like a
That you-
big,
yeah.
veiny monster.
Yeah, and
Okay, this is gonna be a real stretch. Who remembers Ultra Force? Nobody. So no, Ultra Force was like a comic and a cartoon from Malibu Comics. It ran on USA Syndicated. But there was a character in it named Prime, who was an 8-year-old kid who ended up turning into like a super buff hero dude. Like, and you're literally just describing what John Cena
John
is to
Cena
people.
also has like little kid humor, so he does a lot of poop and fart jokes.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I'm becoming
John
a fan of
Cena's-
him now.
His original gimmick.
So he's just a mentally deformed monster man.
Well, he used to be a rapper. His original.
Come on.
God damn
Did
it.
you not know this? His original gimmick when John Cena debuted, he was just a guy, and he beat Kurt Angle for the Intercontinental Championship on his first night in the company.
And then started rapping
And then-
like he's like, I can sing.
Pretty much, yeah. He sings his own theme song.
You're not very good at rapping.
I didn't know how many wrestlers sing their own theme song.
that's
I
a
think that's
thing.
pretty interesting.
Yeah. Oh, that's the thing.
Nobody's theme song though is better than that self high five. This is the closest we're ever going to get to breaking the copyright laws.
Oh, Diamond Dallas
That's
Page's
the one.
theme from yeah, Nirvana.
Self high five.
That still blows my mind. That was discussed in the This Is Rad episode.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the self high five.
That's fucking insane.
Yeah, so, but yeah, the CM Punk promo, basically they let him do that, and that was summer of 2011, also known as the Summer of Punk, because he got so over with that promo. People were, like, so responsive to it. He outsold John Cena in merchandise for the first time ever and became this, huge star. They put the belt on him. He had a run with the belt that was over a year, way over a year. And then at the end of that, he basically was in the Royal Rumble match at the beginning of 2014 and then did not show up for Raw the next night and then was later fired by the company for he just didn't show up on his wedding day. He was fired on the company by the company via FedEx on his wedding day.
That's in real life?
Real life. But so he is now training to be a first-time UFC fighter at the age of 36. He is going to get
I thought he had done it before.
No, he's trained like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay, because I've talked to some MMA fans because I was like, is this guy going to die?
Yeah.
Like, because I was like, if this is the first commercialized snuff film, I might have to get tickets.
He's probably going to die.
Let me explain to you, Kyle Clark. Do you remember that episode of Lost in Space where Dr. Smith takes part in the intergalactic prize fight?
I do, in fact.
It's going to be a lot.
Okay.
Really?
I used to wake up early in the morning to watch Lost in Space before school.
You have seen literally everything ever made.
Except wrestling.
I think there's like 40 of you.
Let me ask you this. You like Lost in Space. Who did you like, Penny or what's her name? Judith, the one that was going out with Major West.
I think it's a totally valid question. I like Penny just because I was like a spunkier brunette.
Oh, I like Penny.
Like,
Man, I don't
Judy's
care
cool. Like, I
what
like
age
that they
she
play
is.
Judy a little smarter. There's not really a dumb one. She's got a little bit of a Marsha thing that I don't love.
Well, the thing is, Judy was stacked.
Yeah.
The thing is, everybody watches the show when they're a kid, so everybody likes Penny.
Yeah.
Even though Judy is one hell of beautiful women.
Yeah.
Hell, I'd take Penny too. She could make room for Daddy with me all night.
Get to the matches. The matches that I chose to showcase this evening for you guys.
Let's start with the sucky match.
Okay.
And let me start, brother, by saying I feel like you really have tainted the legend of Hulk Hogan for me.
All you have to do to taint the legend of Hulk Hogan is actually watch
a Hulk Hogan wrestling match. Because he kind of sucks. And what's the other guy's name?
Shawn Michaels.
Shawn Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid.
What's the other guy's name?
He doesn't have a dope ass nickname. I mean, Heartbreak Kid. But
let me say this. Hulk Hogan slammed Andre the Giant in front of 93,000 people. Shawn Michaels has never had an audience like that. He left the company because his back was broken and he lost his smile.
I believe somebody mentioned his back was broken because he got hit by a coffin.
Yeah,
so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, but I mean, most of the other guys have to wrestling with broken backs. This is all I'm going to say about that, and then y'all can say whatever you want. But it's kind of unfair to the Hulkster, though.
I agree.
Because, like
I
said,
fully agree.
If you see if you see the Rolling Stones from 1992, you're going to say, why did people ever get excited about these guys? You got to see Hulk Hogan from like 84, 85, 86 when he was a legit cultural phenomenon.
I think I mentioned this in the other episode, but in the Hulkster's defense, comedian Steve Simone has a great bit on his stand-up comedy album about the heroism and explaining the heroism of Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
And it's him and his brother at like 8 watching some match where he comes out and saves America, and his brother and him like cried. I think it's where he got his first erection, was watching the Hulk win that match. And it's one of my favorite bits I've ever heard. And so I definitely appreciate that. But in this situation,
Yeah, but there is nothing more arousing than seeing Nikolai Volkov get his ass beat.
yes.
Just to set up the match real quick, and then we'll get you guys' thoughts on it. Basically, the match is from SummerSlam 2005, available on the WWE Network for an undisclosed amount of money, and you can watch it right now. It's the main event. It's Shawn Michaels and Hulk Hogan. It's their first match against one another, two legends fighting. And basically, the story is this. Very briefly, there were supposed to be two matches. Hogan was going to win the first. HBK was going to win the second. The reason being that Hulk Hogan is a part-time wrestler. He was going to go away after that second match, and Shawn Michaels had to continue on his way doing house shows and being on TV all the time. So that's why Hogan was going to win the first match. Michaels was going to pick up the second match. Before the first match started, Hogan decides, I'm not going to do the second match. This is it. So going into the match, Shawn Michaels is fucking furious that he's not going to get his win back.
And you can see the anger in his eyes.
Oh, yeah. And so his goal, instead of, you could choose to do a million things in this situation. HBK, because he's a goddamn showman, decides that his course of action is going to be to make Hulk Hogan look stupid.
Yeah.
So he oversells everything. There's a point where Hogan gives him a punch in the ring, and HBK goes backwards over the ring, falls down half the ramp, like does cartwheels all the way down the ramp. Because
he's the most nimble human being I've ever
Shawn Michaels
seen.
is so impressive.
Shawn Michaels should have gone into gymnastics.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Natalie has notes.
I did. This is actually my first wrestling match I've ever seen.
I'm so happy that was the one.
I've never watched wrestling first match.
Yeah.
I had some thoughts. Okay, I wrote down a list. Number 1, everyone is so greasy.
Yeah. Which, may I add, Kyle gets very sweaty. Kyle looks like he could potentially be related to Hulk
thinking
Hogan.
of going into wrestling after
Let's
this.
do it, baby. I've been thinking about it for a while.
Yeah,
I'll be
be like your not a manager, like a henchman.
He did call it,
kinda
unless he would
thing.
get it.
Yeah, no. I don't want to be a manager.
Well, the person who managed me, please be the one person in the room who owns a white suit.
Oh, well, look in that closet
Yeah.
behind you.
Oh, look, I found my manager.
My next thought was, but actually Kyle answered this, is what do you call that line on Hulk Hogan's face that looks like he can cut glass? And you said jowl chasm?
Yeah. It's a jowl chasm.
What's with the boas?
Yeah, that's the one.
The boas.
When he was younger, and then later he got those. You remember Go-Go 13?
Yeah.
He looks like that. He has those lines in his face like that.
It's insane. Like it looks like there should be X-Wing fighters going into them to prepare to destroy Hulk Hogan's head.
See him when he was a little bit younger. He looked a little bit like John Cleese. His face, he really did.
They do have same skull structure. Next time.
I feel like you guys should get a room. You're having little moments.
I'm on the bed already.
It's true.
Give it time.
5, I said the ballet of pants because their pants were fascinating and hypnotic.
Really interesting pants. Hogan wears tie-dye, yellow pants with red tie-dye.
And the Heartbreak Kid was wearing chaps made out of a Ouija
Ouija board
Yeah,
thingies.
chaps made out of googly eyes.
Do you all remember when he had the mirror chaps?
What?
Oh,
He
yeah.
had little, you know how on, I don't know what the hell to call it.
A disco ball?
Yeah,
Yeah,
kind of
almost like a disco ball.
The
He'd have
little squares.
mirrored-
This is a dumb question, but do they wear the same thing every match, or do they switch it? Oh, okay, they switch up the outfits.
For different matches, like for a big high-profile match like
Yeah.
that, you get brand new gear. Man.
Oh,
if you're one of
okay.
the top guys, you
Yeah.
come out with something no one's ever seen before.
Okay.
So, I
And in
guarantee
Hulk
you-
Hogan's case, it was a Hulk Hogan T-shirt and some boas.
Yeah, so Hogan is classic. So
he's
he wears
a
the same shit
lazy
all the time.
old
okay.
woman.
Yeah. Hogan, when he's a good guy, he wears the tie. Well, he used to wear obviously the short pants. Now that he's older, he wears the pants that you
His
saw.
balls must be
Okay.
contained.
Yeah, exactly.
Gross.
They're almost non-existent with the steroids now.
All right, number 7. Before each match, does Hulk Hogan stick his head in a cotton candy machine? 'Cause that's what his hair looks like.
He does have the weirdest displacement of hair.
One noteworthy thing about this
What
match,
do we call that hair, Pat?
a skullet.
That's the
Oh,
It's a skullet.
skullet. Gross.
But one thing that Shawn Michaels does do to anger Hulk Hogan is that during one of the sequences of moves to get back at Hulk Hogan, he yanks off Hulk Hogan's do-rag to expose his
And you hear the audience go, ugh.
Oh God, we're all gonna die.
Don't do that.
You know, I have to say this: a lot of great wrestlers were cursed with premature baldness.
Well, it's probably from all the testosterone and stuff they take.
Superstar Billy Graham had this. Macho Man Randy Savage was
Mm-hmm.
going wrong too.
Yeah.
He Ron Papilled his hair before matches. He sprayed his bald spot every time. I guarantee you. Macho, R.I.P.
The last 10 minutes before a full like wrestling event starts must be the most intense and also sad thing ever.
Oh yeah, it's you know.
I can't imagine like being a wrestler and just how good it must feel when you enter. Just how amazing an entrance is. Like I just can't imagine that's the best feeling ever
I
in the
about
universe.
this constantly since I was a child. I don't want the adulation. Like I want to like my ultimate goal, more so than doing any sort of Mount Everest of comedy you can think of, would be to be booed by Madison Square Garden. I'm not even
that would
fucking
feel
around.
so
it would
good.
feel so fucking good if they were throwing shit at you and people were just like, fucking die, motherfucker! Like you get like real legitimate heat from a whole arena.
One
full
of my
people.
favorite internet personalities, Dan Reichert of Giant Bomb, has become a manager for an amateur wrestling league.
I want that.
And
I
his
wanna do
character is that he is a Silicon Valley rich guy asshole heel manager who rides in on a Segway and has like a tie and like
so
glasses
good.
like he's out of Silicon Valley, and then just like
Does he have a little ear, like a Bluetooth?
like a Bluetooth, and like
Is he
he's
dressed
just
like Steve Jobs. And
yeah,
shit?
basically, yeah.
Fuck,
and
that's
he's
amazing.
just an asshole to the audience. And he said the greatest moment of his life was when like an 8-year-old kid who was at the event pointed at him and goes, "I hope you die."
That's all. That's
Great. Yeah,
Or no, I hope you die, nerd.
Oh, that's perfect. When I was a little kid, I would make action figures wrestle. Half of the time I'd spend just like getting them to the ring and like just all that fanfare that comes out of
I didn't realize how much
It's
wrestling
great.
like really builds kids to focus on panache.
It is all pomp and
yeah.
circumstance. It's barely an athletic event. It is 90% pomp.
I feel like if you would explain that to me as a kid, I would have had a whole different appreciation to it.
I feel
not
like
too
I
late.
threw
We're here
better
every month.
I threw better parties in college because of all the wrestling I watched. Of like, you gotta have tons of smoke, you gotta have all these kind of flashing lights. That's how you get people going.
Yeah, I mean, my dream is like they do this all the time, where they'll find some guy who's an idiot who can't talk, and they'll just pair him with some guy who can talk fast, and the guy who gets to talk, he gets booed just as much, and then once a month he gets to get thrown through a table. That sounds fucking awesome.
Have you guys ever thought about like what your entrance would be?
Oh yeah.
I bet it's come up.
Extensively.
Okay.
Do you have another note?
I just said, this seems really unhygienic.
Oh, because he was covered in blood.
That actually bothered me. I don't like that it's real blood.
The blood, yeah, it's real
I'm a
blood.
little averse to
And
violence.
we're talking to you're talking to a couple who like are buying blood by the gallon
actually
for
did.
short films at
Listen
this
to their
point.
goddamn Halloween episode
Like-
they did 2 weeks ago.
I literally, spirit of Halloween, I went the day after Christmas and everything was half off, and I bought just like a gallon of fake blood.
And the woman was like, "What are you going to do with all that blood?"
And I'm like, I'm going to find a use for it because we're going to use a gallon of
we
fake
were
blood.
leaving here today, and my dad is doing a gig where people were supposed to wear costumes, and so my dad's band were dressing up as like Reservoir Dogs. My dad gets all shot up, and I have like a bullet hole prosthesis that I did to his forehead and like covered it in thick blood. And he's like, "Well, the rest of the band wants blood too." And I'm like, "Well, give me a minute, I'll go make up my fake blood recipe." And I literally gave him a Tupperware full of fake blood and a sponge brush to go so he can bloody up his bandmates.
Wow,
That's great.
So practical. It's practical purpose.
So that's fun. But cutting open a famous
But
old
I
man
didn't know
wrestler's
they,
head just seemed like and he's got a real can opener line there.
Yeah, Sean. Yeah, he is completely. He. If you don't know wrestlers, if you ever see a wrestler bleed, it's real blood. They will usually tape a razor blade somewhere in their athletic tape on their hands, or sometimes on their fingers. Sometimes the really hardcore ones, as Pat mentioned while we were watching, under their tongue.
Yikes.
That's insane.
And you'll see in this match in particular, if you are wanting to watch it, Hogan kind of like hits his head a couple of times with the back of his hand, and it's because he's trying to bust himself open, and he doesn't do it at first. So when he finally does, he gets this huge gash and gets what they call a crimson mask, where the entire face is just covered in blood.
Gordon Solie, the famous wrestling announcer, he's wearing a crimson mask. He used to say that.
It's so matter of fact.
Yeah, but they have cut back on the blood almost entirely.
Okay,
so
good.
When you
The blood actually goes in waves because during the 80s, like, when Hulk Hogan got real popular and a lot of kids started watching it, After WrestleMania 3, they stopped doing the blood.
Oh, that makes sense.
Interesting.
And they brought it back like in the 90s.
When it's sort of when I feel like it's interesting because it seems like kind of a generational thing where like people will watch and when they're kids.
Can I say this?
Yeah.
You hit the nail right on the head there because I've always said this. Pro wrestling is generational. It's like music or rock and roll or something. That's why y'all guys can talk about like Attitude Era or something. And I grew up a huge wrestling fan, and I didn't even watch that stuff. You know, just like somebody might have grown up listening to like 60s or 70s rock and never listened to punk or 80s rock or grunge or whatever. Pro wrestling is very generational.
And it's I feel like it like that starts from like the weird place where it loses the old audience and finds a new audience. And then that sort of streamlines into a mainstream. And then it has to reset to weird and builds again. It's interesting.
It's like SNL or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually a fucking perfect way to put it. It's exactly like SNL. Once every 10 years, it's good.
I wish Jimmy Fallon would have bled from the face.
You get a lot of characters that fall flat.
Well, he does fall down a bunch, so he could do it hard way a couple.
Okay, there we go.
And that
then,
being said, I want to see
No,
Larry David wrestling as Bernie Sanders.
Okay, so the second match.
Yeah, the second match. So
this is the match that I was interesting to watch. Natalie watch this match.
Yeah, so I wanted to for the good match. So Hogan and Michaels is garbage, but it was fun to watch.
It was fun to watch, but
Yeah,
it
for
was
sure.
definitely also like it was watching two old guys fight.
And they were out of breath so quickly.
Yeah,
it was
It's all being gassed.
yeah, so it's not being gassed, or blown up, yeah. So like Steve Austin uses that term all the time, like when in 10 minutes we were all blown up. That means you're done. You're like breathing in the corner and shit.
Sucking wind so hard the first row died of oxygen deprivation.
But the second one was an NXT match.
Yeah, so we mentioned on the last podcast, right now WWE has this second brand that we compared to, I guess, Sire Records being their smaller brand that's easier to understand. And I'm serious, if you're listening to my voice and you're not a wrestling fan and you want to get into it, watch NXT. It's once a week.
As a person who you can trust, Rivers, I was very skeptical when you said this, and you're so right. It's super accessible
and it's
super modern. It feels
it's very modern.
Yeah. So we watched for my good match, and honestly, this so far in 2015, unless some crazy shit happens in the next 2 months, my two candidates for match of the year were the first John Cena and Kevin Owens match, and the one that we watched, which was Baylee and Sasha Banks.
Pat disagrees.
Well, because Pat's going to show us something else from last week that apparently is going to blow my mind. So I'm excited to see that. The NXT Takeover Brooklyn. So it was their first match for the NXT Women's Championship. I think it's my favorite match this year.
And so it was interesting. So we have Baylee,
who describe Baylee.
She's spunky.
She's spunky. She's like an 8. Her theme is that she's an 8-year-old
She's
girl.
like if that chick from Napoleon Dynamite wrestled.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
No, the one like shitty friend of the girls in Bob's Burgers.
Her entrance may be my new favorite thing ever because she walks out, instead of fireworks, she's got her crazy little like version logo of her name and the song plays, and as the song kicks on, wacky inflatable arm flailing things. Like 8 of them just shoot to life.
Yeah.
Cirque du Soleil has nothing on that.
Crazy.
Because it's
75 Rolling Stones tour had nothing on it too.
Yeah. It's just like it's equal parts trashy and delightful.
Yeah, right? And I think she is just like
she's my new favorite wrestler.
She's great. And she's just like a really like fun. She's from Santa Cruz.
She's cute and she could murder me.
Cute.
Baylee versus Sasha.
And Sasha
Describe Sasha Banks.
I like Sasha
is
more.
fucking
I gotta
fierce.
say,
Yeah,
she's got this cool little
for
like
days.
wrap around her arm that looked really cool.
Natalie, will you describe how she entered the stage?
On her panties where "boss" was written in sparkles. But the way she entered the stage, she pulls up in an SUV with like bodyguards and black sunglasses and suits, and then they lift her to the stage.
As if they're like the SWAT of cool.
Yeah, they're like bodyguards, and then she gets to the edge of the ring, and they lift her up like a human elevator.
Yeah,
all 4 feet up to the ring.
She looks at them impatiently too before they lift her. Like, do it.
So a little background on Sasha Banks. She's actually Snoop Dogg's niece, and she came up with that gimmick because she hung out with Snoop Dogg for the weekend and noticed that all of his boys called him boss. So everybody who hangs out with Snoop Dogg's like, oh, whatever you say, boss. Yeah, boss, we got it, boss. And she was like, I want to be boss. So that's her nickname is the boss. But yeah, so anyway, go on with the Sasha.
That was just really cool because those girls are in amazing shape. They're super athletic. They kick the shit out of each other. It was
so
just
fun,
after
right?
seeing fucking Hulk Hogan like pass out like 5 seconds into battle. It was really cool watching, especially watching girls wrestle.
It was also
really
fun to
cool.
watch you like light up when there were like little girls in wrestling shirts there, and watching the wrestlers hug like little girls.
Yeah.
It was like
Don't you wish that you would have went now when you were a little kid?
Kind of, yeah.
It wasn't like that though when you was a kid.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
for
you
sure,
wouldn't
for
have
sure.
You would have
Something
just
like
been
that.
sexually
No.
assaulted.
Yeah.
Yeah, the girls that were wrestling would have been like literally been in lingerie and hitting each other with pillows. It was bullshit.
So
Yeah, that was the good old days.
WWE is making up for lost time with their women's division because for the longest time the women's division was there was definitely bright spots. There were great wrestlers in there like Lita, Trish Stratus. There was great wrestlers, but they would make them do like
just stupid shit.
Like they'd have
Like mud wrestle.
mud wrestling. They'd have like it's a bra and panties match, shit like that. An evening gown
Is
match.
that also narrated?
Evening down there.
But is that going to be narrated by the governor of the great state of Minnesota? No.
That stuff was after he was.
Yeah, this was
Oh,
after he
okay.
was gone.
Because the idea of seeing any woman do anything vaguely erotic while he's narrating it would be the greatest thing ever.
In the days when Jesse Ventura was on wrestling, they had to keep it more like PG.
Gotcha,
So they didn't
okay.
do stuff like that.
The women seem to be gyrating, but to me, I don't understand. I feel like it might be a message to the Illuminati.
So, but yeah, so the match.
It was super fun. It was cool.
Fun to watch.
It was fun,
And could you just based on the limited information you had understand everybody's motivations?
Yes, super clear.
Who's good? Who's bad?
good?
When
Who's
everybody,
bad?
when then the four of them running into the thing at the end, so you're like, oh, and everybody's friends, and it's a show.
Do they do any behind like when you talk about storylines and stuff? Is there anything like outside of the matches where they do storylines, or is it mostly all just in? Oh, okay, okay,
what we-
okay. Oh, just the promos.
So
Okay,
those are
okay.
promos. So what we've been watching for the most part has been main event, like pay-per-view matches, which is no talking, just action. But when you watch the show,
Raw
or NXT, a lot of the show is just talking. Final thoughts on the Baylee Sasha match?
I thought it was awesome.
I thought it was a good match, good mix of variety of moves, but I hated that thing where all four of them get in and hug each other.
I love that.
Beautiful. The
I
horsewoman,
never like
horsewoman.
a happy ending in wrestling.
Right,
I
okay, so-
always like there to be something crazy.
I feel like Pat's about to take us to a real dark place.
Yeah, I think so. I'm excited. But what I will say is, to their credit, they did that in the moment, and they, it happened, and they haven't acknowledged it afterwards. So they showed it on the broadcast, and then as soon as they got back to Monday, it was right back to like fuck you
To characters.
Yeah,
Okay.
Sasha Banks was just like, it was a great moment, but I still hate you.
Yeah. Sasha Banks, that was her one acknowledgement of it. She was like, yeah, it was a great moment, but I still think you're a loser.
Yeah.
And
Dope.
Okay,
yeah,
that's
so they let it go on, and it's also a small nod to an incident that happened at Madison Square Garden back in '96 called the Curtain Call, where a bunch of guys were leaving for WCW, and a bunch of the WF guys who were staying all kind of like came back out after the show and like kind of embraced in the ring. And at the time, it was like a huge controversy, and basically Triple H got the shaft for it.
He ended up having to wrestle the next match in a hog pen and get his butt kicked by a guy named Henry O. Godwin. And he was just covered in mud and like pig poo.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
gosh.
I think with that, let's do this.
yeah, let's go to Pat's matches.
All right, and we're back with Pat's curated.
Pat, you took us to some real dark.
Yeah, we can't be friends anymore. I don't know.
I took you guys to the peaks and the valleys and the depths of professional wrestling. And where do you want to start? You guys want to start with the matches, or do you want to start with the
Let's
promo?
start with the matches.
Okay, so
Yeah.
the first match that I showed them was
Excellent match.
Yeah, thank you.
You took us out of the world of the WWEs and CWs and NRAs and QFTs and NXRs and NRAs.
Indeed. The match that I showed that was the good match, and I really kind of deliberated about what match to show. Initially, I was going to show the match that made me a fan of professional wrestling, which was a match between Brian Pillman and Jushin Thunder Liger from 1992, which is a fantastic match, and y'all should check it out. What happened was last week on the 7th, so a week ago from today, there was a
Rumble in Japan.
A Rumble in Japan. It's New Japan Pro Wrestling, which has actually become relatively popular now because they're having a larger reach. They're starting to make matches and storylines much like in the United States, kind of based upon 1980s Southern style wrestling. And the match that I showed was a match between two guys, Tomohiro Ishii and Hanma. And this match is insane. So I just wanted to hear what you guys had to say about it.
First of all, it was crazy that like in Japan they really hit each other.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
You really
not
hear
enjoy that.
everything as if
These
it's like
are
a good stage chop, but like everything lands blows. I also really like the way that they would taunt each other by like lightly kicking each other in the forehead when the one was on the ground. It clearly wasn't like a move of like I'm gonna hurt you here. It's just a like, hey, come on,
tap.
I own you right now.
In Japan, and we talked about this during the match, is they work what they call the strong style, which is where they hit pretty much as hard as they can with an open hand. Like they don't do the closed fist thing like they do on WWE, so nothing looks telegraphed in. It looks it is painful.
I thought about showing y'all a match between two American wrestlers wrestling in Japan, Stan Hansen, the Lariat, and Big Van Vader, and Hansen knocks Vader's eye out of his socket during the match. Vader pushes it back in, and they finish the match.
Yeah.
And if you don't know, Vader is the guy that played Frankie Stechino's father on Boy Meets World. But yeah.
How have I never seen that match before?
You never seen the Stan Hansen?
No.
Oh, it's brutal.
It's disgusting.
Yeah. Because Americans will get over to Japan and they will just act a fucking fool. Like they'll just go insane.
Yeah, let me tell you, Stan Hansen, he is one of my greatest idols in life. He was this big bad cowboy from Borger, Texas. And in America, he was a well-known wrestler and he main evented sometimes. But in Japan, he was one of the biggest names in history.
Because he was twice as big as everyone there.
He was huge and he could go nonstop and he would beat the piss out of everybody.
Tell him what he would carry to the ring.
Oh, he'd carry a cowbell with a bull rope on it, and he would swing it around, just whack people with it.
He'd carry it.
And he would swing it at the crowd, and you would see these Japanese fans just run like Godzilla had walked into the arena. Like they're going, yeah, Stan! And then like he'd
swing a rope with a cowbell on it.
Just runs in fear. It's like
that's amazing.
Yeah, so
let me tell you something. If you look up "real man" in a dictionary, there's a picture of Stan Hansen.
But yeah, Japan has a really like interesting tradition in wrestling going back to the 1950s, and it was kind of a post-war thing where there was the big Japanese hero wrestler was this guy named Ricky Dozan, and they would bring American wrestlers over. And what would happen was that Ricky Dozan would beat all these American wrestlers as a way to deal kind of with the loss to the Americans in World War II.
Interesting.
And so Japanese wrestling has kind of developed since then. And what you had here was just two hosses beating the crap out of each other.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Wrecking
Mean
each
guy
other.
match.
Which ones were which, by the way? All
Okay,
right, so there's Pink
Ishii-
Pants.
Okay, so Ishii is a very
bald
short
guy.
man. He's about 5'9", weighs about, I'd say 270 pounds. He looks like an egg. He's bald.
Yeah. Oh, he's Black Pants.
Yeah, Black Pants.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And then Pink Pants was
Hanma.
okay.
Hanma's
Ishii and
kind of a
Hanma.
boy.
Yeah, Tomoaki Hanma. And Tomoaki Hanma's big thing is that he never wins.
And it's a bummer because he has a warrior spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And apparently a head made out of concrete.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't. Special move is that he headbutts people, but he climbs onto the top ropes and then dives like a diver head first into a human body.
Yeah, it's the craziest shit. I hadn't seen this match, by the way, so I was just
Rivers lost his shit.
I couldn't believe how crazy it was.
The big move in this that drives you nuts. One of the things
This was last week, you guys.
And they're both dead now.
That's his gimmick, that he has no arms, he has no legs, he basically fights with his head. And he just hits people with his head. And it doesn't work all the time.
Well, he said he loses all the time, so
Yeah.
it seemingly never works. It's never worked before.
But the craziest thing in the match is that, like, halfway through the match, stuff gets real because he headbutts Ishii out of the ring, and he climbs to the top rope. Ishii's on the floor. And usually when you see that, you see some guy do a big flip. You see him maybe do a few turns, maybe do a double axe handle.
Nope.
Not Hanma.
Just face first into a human body.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's so fucking crazy.
Because you think for a minute, did he die?
Yeah. He crooks his head down. He stands up fully erect, crooks his head downward, and just topples like a mighty tree.
Yeah.
It's almost got the stiffness of a flare flop or something like that.
It is almost like a flare flop off the top rope. It's nuts.
Natalie's grimacing. Natalie, what did you...
I don't like watching people hurt each other. I find it legitimately upsetting. But then after watching that horrible second match you showed us, I really appreciated how realistic the Japanese match was.
Just to close on the Hanma Ishii thing, the thing is that Hanma and Ishii have wrestled quite a bit. And
yeah, because you said they're 40.
Yeah, both of those guys
That's
are 40
insane.
years old. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and Hanma actually, he has a cult following. So it's like his underdog character, which I think is very interesting, is that in America, if you lose all the time, you're a jobber. Or like people just get all mad and you lose all the time. Like Antonio Cesaro.
Right.
You lose all the time, you're getting buried. With him, like he's strong and he fights a good fight and he loses in the end and the crowd loves
He's
him.
like Tommy Dreamer.
I get it. Being from Cleveland and a Cleveland Browns fan, I get it. I'm on that guy's side.
Yeah, but Hanma has a movement called Hanmania. So he's like kind of like got this Hulk Hogan
and it's
cult
kind
of
brilliant
personality.
if you think about it, when he wins, Japan's gonna explode.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, at one point, the thing that I liked was Ishii, in order to talk crap to Hanma, slaps him in the face and calls him an American.
Yeah, that was pretty dope.
Yeah, he says like you hear a string of Japanese and you just hear American at the end.
And then
one word in Japanese, lariato.
Yeah, that's the lariat, right?
Goodnight. What's your thoughts on the match?
I thought it was great, Pat. I thought you actually blessed us by showing that match.
Yeah.
I thought it was one of the best modern matches I'd seen. Maybe I'll just start watching Japan now because you blessed us with that match, Pat. My heart sang a little bit.
I do like that for so far our two examples of good wrestling have both been not regular WWE
Right,
matches.
Yeah, that's true.
It was NXT and Japanese wrestling.
There are good WWE matches. Like Rivers talked about the Kevin Owens John Cena match.
Was amazing. Yeah. So Kevin Owens and John Cena, real quick. Kevin Owens, indie superstar, used to wrestle under his real name, Kevin Steen.
Wrestles in basketball shorts.
He dresses like garbage, and it's the fucking best.
My dog is Wiggles. It's her favorite wrestler.
He looks like me, except like a little fatter, and he wears like male Spanx and basketball shorts. And his one of his big moves is called the cannonball, where he just he'd like sling a guy into the corner and then just runs at them and just does like a somersault, like you used to do on the grass in summertime, just into their head. So that's called the cannonball, and he's great. And he just talks trash, and he's French Canadian. He sounds like Shane Black from Vice. They have the same exact voice, so anytime I hear Shane Black talk, I'm like Kevin Owens. But yeah, and his first match he had with John Cena was actually fucking great, because John Cena has been disregarded for a long time by people like me, but this year, for whatever reason, he got the U.S. Championship and was basically spent the entire year auditioning for Ring of Honor, like tried to be the greatest indie wrestler.
And he has fantastic matches. Still gets booed by the fans.
Yeah,
the fans still think he sucks.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, and they always will.
The guy could go out there and do like a Hanma top rope out of the ring headbutt into the ground.
Oh yeah, they
would still be like, "Boo, you're lame."
His last match he had on Raw with CM Punk is still one of the best matches I've ever seen. But yeah, so he's capable of having good matches, but people still are just like, "Fuck this dude," because they're tired of his character.
But yeah, so we had that match, and I followed it up with, okay, everybody talks about how great the Attitude Era is.
You literally, like, because we stopped and we saw the D-Generation X guys dance out and push a garbage can, which I feel like symbolically could not, the beautiful metaphor in that could not be lost on anyone.
We saw 3 seconds of Road Dogg Jesse James humping a dumpster.
And it literally encapsulated everything I hated about wrestling when I was young.
Matt looks offended.
I liked that shit.
I did too, Matt.
Yeah, man.
I'm with you, buddy.
Throwing somebody into a bunch of trash.
Much. You know what that was?
Such a great way to be like, I win.
You know what? I don't give a fuck, because that was my generation. Okay?
But
it's obnoxious. It's trashy.
But like 2000 is kind of like where I think a lot of people who were deep into the Attitude era and into wrestling at that time were starting to kind of like take some,
it feels like
steps
there's
back.
a hate crime happening just off camera at all times.
So we hit the critical mass of the juvenile, puerile humor that was at the root of the Attitude Era, and the match that I selected was the all-time classic.
Such a pile
Hall of
shit.
Famer, WWE Hall of Famer Pat Patterson versus WWE Hall of Famer Gerald Briscoe in the first
AKA
ever.
John Boehner.
Yeah, sweaty
Fred
Boehner.
Armisen character.
Yeah, and
AKA Gilbert Gottfried in drag.
What was it, Pat?
It was the first ever at King of the Ring 2000, the first ever hardcore evening gown match between two 60-year-old men in
drag.
Full drag.
That was straight up the worst thing I've ever seen. Like, I'm angry you showed me that.
It felt like a Portlandia sketch from beginning to end. Even with the way it ended, still felt like a Portlandia sketch. And then when you point out that the guy who ends up winning killed himself, and it, like looked like this
Crash
is what,
Holly.
In the match.
and it
wasn't in the
also
match.
looks like that would be where the Flea cameo would come in the episode of Portlandia.
So just to give you guys an idea,
I'm almost mad at you.
this is 3 minutes long.
And
match
it
is-
felt like 45.
I couldn't believe how long
there's
it
like
felt.
there's like a build up to the match.
Yeah,
the
they
match
show
itself is tiny. The build up of everybody
A
strutting
grown
around.
man shoves up, reaches in his crotch, pulls out a pad,
A used
a
pad.
sanitary napkin, and throws it or shoves
it
it in
in his
another man's
mouth.
face.
Shove it in a man's mouth.
Yeah.
Before that, he had shoved a banana in.
Because it looks like a dick.
Yeah, he peeled it and everything.
And said, "You want a banana?" And he shoves it in his face. This is good enough.
Can we use the word abortion? Otherwise, I'll just say this. Do y'all remember the end of Blade Runner when Harrison Ford is outside in the rain and that English guy comes out in his underwear, the skin job, and he says, "I've seen things nobody should see." I think the skin job just watched the Pat Patterson, Gerald Briscoe hardcore evening match.
The thing is that just to give you guys an idea, this was for the Hardcore Championship. All right, and
a belt that I love.
This is the only interesting thing about this segment.
Burnside summed it up very well.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you are actually in the match or not. The belt is up for grabs 24/7, 365. You could be eating Thanksgiving dinner. You could be pouring gravy out that gravy boat. Somebody could break into your house, and as long as there's a ref there to count the 1, 2, 3, you can take that championship. belt.
Briscoe actually won the championship, I believe, when Pat Patterson was napping. He was napping. I'm serious. He was napping on a couch, and Briscoe comes in with a referee, and they're like, "Shh." And he just puts his hand on Patterson's chest, and the referee goes, 1, 2, 3. I swear that's how he won.
These skits would take up at least a quarter of the episode.
Yeah, they took up so much time on the show.
And so, and even
This is
But
an
then you
Adam
would get
Sandler
those-
movie.
But then you would get those awesome matches. Like, wasn't there one where I forget who it was, but they wrestled when there wasn't even a crowd, and they just like went through the.
Oh, that was The
arena?
Rock and Mankind.
there was a match.
But that was for a hardcore.
No, that was for the championship.
Was
The
that a
straight up?
championship?
Yeah, because Mankind pinned him with a forklift.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
For the
The
championship.
world title
For the world
that was held by
WWF championship.
Bruno San Martino,
Yeah.
Bob Backlund,
Yeah.
superstar Billy
Mankind pinned The Rock with a
Graham.
forklift.
Slaughter.
Yeah.
Sergeant Slaughter, after he defected to the Iraqis, Sergeant Slaughter committed treason to get that belt. Mankind used the forklift.
Yeah.
In an empty arena. But
During the halftime of the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That was when they showed that.
Oh, that's right.
Because it was halftime heat, and they had to figure
Yep.
out a way to sneak in like 32 minutes of content. So the match is exactly as long as the halftime of the Super Bowl.
so
They were smart.
Evening gown match, guys,
Smart is a real odd word to use.
is a takeoff of the tuxedo match, a very misogynistic takeoff of the tuxedo match. And the idea is that you're supposed to strip your opponent of their tuxedo or evening gown so they're down to their underpants.
Yeah.
Pat Patterson and Gerald Briscoe were wearing women's underpants, staying true to the theme of the evening gown match.
Well, one of them, I was impressed that one of them was wearing a thong.
Briscoe.
And heels.
Yeah,
And
Briscoe.
heels.
Something out. If they had worn regular men's drawers, it would have showed through the evening gown.
Yeah, you don't want those lines.
Yeah.
No panty line.
No VPLs.
Yeah.
And
you don't
then-
want to see any Hanes
But
logo.
then on the flip side, the other gentleman had stuffed both his ladies' underwear and bra full of props.
Yeah.
He entered with a shopping cart filled with I don't know what.
Toilet paper, a teddy bear, none of which were used.
Yeah.
Nope.
None of it makes any sense.
Neither was the
Chekhov
2x4.
shopping cart.
Yeah.
I have to say, that's a great idea. Do women do that? Because if I was a woman, I'd have someone shit in my bra, but like Inspector Gadget.
Yeah.
So then the
Sorry,
match
that was
ends
awful of me.
Yeah.
with some fucking weird piece of shit.
Random
like,
dude who's not in the match.
Crash Holly.
Not wearing an evening gown.
Yeah, runs in, hits one of them with a trash
can.
can, pins the other one, counts it out, grabs the belt, and is gone. And you guys are like, it's a real shame. People really love that guy, and then he killed himself.
It's true.
As Pat Patterson and Gerald Briscoe.
Did that guy get a Jack-specific action figure?
Yeah, he did. Crash Holly, basically was protege to Bob Holly, who is Alabama's most famous wrestler from Mobile, Alabama, the innovator of the Alabama Slam.
Most famous overbite in wrestling.
That's right. And Bob Holly took on a protege, Crash Holly, who ended up becoming more popular than Bob. His cousin, cousin Crash Holly. And then later he got a bad drug problem.
They both claimed to be 7 foot tall and 400 pounds, so they would wrestle giant guys.
They'd pretend they were huge, basically.
Because he was a little fella.
They were both tiny.
His original gimmick in the Independence was a wrestling leprechaun.
Yeah.
So,
and Bob Holly's original
was my idea.
Bob Holly's original gimmick, Hardcore Holly's original gimmick was Spark Plug, the race car. Thurman Sparky Plug, the race car driver.
Rad when we mentioned the era when everybody had like a stupid gimmick where they had another job.
An occupation.
Like that fits right in there.
That was it.
One of those, yeah. And he was a race car driver.
Your promo then was a commercial for cocaine.
Yes, indeed. So my promo, and actually I was very surprised.
What year is that from?
1983.
Okay, there we go.
Check
so
it out.
I imagine like literally at the end of that, there's just a black and white tag that says cocaine. Start doing it.
In the background, you can almost hear "Take It to the Limit."
He literally wipes his nose.
Yeah,
in the telltale
that's the best
Coke nose
part.
rub in the middle of a promo, going like, "I know I'm on television, and I know we only get one take of this, but."
And the boss is right here. And I'm being interviewed by the boss of the company.
It's insane.
Well, the thing...
Can I say something? That was talent doing that promo, not Coke. Coke just keeps him on his feet during the long TV tapings.
This is Don Morocco.
Yeah.
The magnificent
Which
Don
is
Morocco.
a Bond villain name.
Yeah, the magnificent Don Morocco from Sunset Beach, Hawaii, cutting a promo on Jimmy Superfly Snuka before their famous cage match in which Jimmy Snuka jumps off the cage atop of Don Morocco, which basically inspired Mick Foley, Tommy Dreamer to become professional wrestlers. And I thought, this is a good, intense promo. The rest of the people here took it as he's really high on coke, and he was.
Cool. I'm glad I said those things. I never said nothing. I'm glad you dove over the top rope, tried to drive me through the concrete.
I think it shows everything a promo's supposed to be because it talks you into the building. Who wouldn't watch that? And it's a WWF fan like, wow, I got to see this guy buy a ticket against Jimmy Snuka. It's going to be hot shit.
Mm-hmm. He's crazy.
That's the point of the promo because in those days they made all their money off of things like Madison Square Garden shows. And when you went on TV like that, your job was to sell tickets by being as crazy or as interested or making that match seem like it was going to be hot shit.
That is a fascinating thing that I feel like wrestling has done better than maybe anything is figuring out like integrated future advertisements within your program as a narrative function.
Well, this is another thing in the 24-hour show we did on Rad that we didn't get to talk about too much, but before like the 90s when it became a big ratings thing, pro wrestling on TV was just an ad for a live show that they were going to do.
Pay-per-view or...
Yeah, and then it became like an ad for pay-per-view. But when you would watch like WWF wrestling in those days, All-Star Wrestling and stuff, it was basically just to get you to go out to Madison Square Garden and see their shows. The only reason the TV existed with any wrestling company was just to get you to go and see their shows live.
So because Morocco cuts all these... Both of them are insane. Both of these guys are insane, probably on a ton of coke.
Kind of a running motif for wrestling.
And Jimmy Snuka, high on coke.
When you say that inspired those two people, both of those wrestlers also insane people.
Yeah, indeed.
So it's just
Jimmy Snuka currently arraigned for murder. So but
a murder committed pretty close to this time period.
Roughly around this time.
Did it involve a speedboat?
No,
it seems like the kind of thing that would.
No, it was a rock and a stop on the side of the highway to pee.
Oh, there we go.
Don Morocco.
Wait, what?
My mistake.
Wait, yeah, what is
Jimmy Superfly Snuka allegedly beat his girlfriend to death with a rock on the side of the highway.
And it was covered up.
And it was covered up probably by Vince McMahon, allegedly.
Especially and there'll probably be a link to it too. The gimmick of the promo, the narrative arc, is that they're being locked in a crystal palace. Their cage is a crystal palace, and Don Morocco talks about being locked in a crystal palace underwater.
There, Superfly, is where the volcano erupted. That's where you threw your 250 pounds out of the sky onto my body. That's where you came after me like you never come after anybody before. And that's where it started.
His eyes are just bugging out of his head.
It's kind of beautiful.
It also foreshadowed the amount of crystal people in his hometown were about to start smoking.
And now we're talking about this on the way in. Don Morocco was one of the best talkers of all time. And he's one of those guys, people today, they don't realize it so much. But what he does in that promo is actually, it's pretty incredible.
It's phenomenal.
He gets quiet and he gets intense instead of being loud and boisterous. And he gets your attention. And he brings a particular emotion on it. He's supposed to be the bad guy. You're supposed to hate him. But the way he's talking about it, like comparing it to Drowning and all that, it's almost artistic. It's everything a great promo could be, and it'll get your butt in Madison Square Garden to see that match.
But Don Morocco, the thing about Don Morocco that's interesting is that Don Morocco also was big on smoking pot. And if you look up Don Morocco on Google image search, one of the first images that you'll see is him wearing a T-shirt that's a knockoff of the Budweiser logo that says Bud Master. And he looks high off his butt, completely stoned. And one of his other famous promos
in the 80s.
Yeah, in the 80s, of course. And one of his other he could be funny too. And one of his
he had it all.
Well, yeah, he was a triple threat. And one of his most well-known promos was that he started eating donuts while.
Oh, that's him.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But then you got to watch your diet. At a certain time, every day, every 3-4 hours, you got to eat. As a matter of fact, it's time right now. Would you like a donut?
A donut?
A donut. This is what happens. This is how you maintain championship balance. Have a donut. Have a donut.
No. Donnie, please.
I got donuts all over the place.
I see that.
I have the right donuts.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, one of the moments where I knew that Pat and I were going to be friends, Pat used to do a bit.
That was a takeoff of
that was
that
a
promo.
takeoff on that promo, which was this thing called Eat a Donut.
Yeah.
Where like they're just like so it's Jimmy Snuka doing that?
No, Don Morocco.
So Don Morocco would go like, eat a donut, come on, have a donut.
Yeah.
It was this weird thing that he would do to the guy like who was interviewing
Mean Gene,
him, to Mean Gene, and it's the weirdest thing. And then Pat used to do that as a bit on stage.
Yeah.
And the first time I ever saw him do stand-up, he did that. And I knew nothing about the wrestling thing, so for a minute, I was like, Pat is the greatest stand-up comedian who's ever taken the stage doing stand-up.
Eat a donut.
And then he then went on to explain to me that it's a takeoff on this thing.
Although
and then for a year, I just bugged you to do that bit every day.
But I was like cutting jokes about David Petraeus. And
Yeah.
It's like these hack jokes.
It's this insane
Yeah,
thing.
because Don Morocco manages to shove 6 donuts in his mouth, and he's like cutting a promo, just like, "Come on, eat a donut."
Like, and you would on stage have 5 to 7 donuts in your mouth
Yeah.
with crumbs exploding out onto the
Much like
front row
Don
of a room. Like back when Unurban was at the front, so there was like people who like were being forced to watch this.
And Don Morocco has Wayfarers on, so you don't see how bloodshot his eyes are.
Right.
Well, I got to point this out too. Don Morocco once wrestled a match against the Jobber where he was eating a meatball sub. He had Lou Albano, who was his manager, stand outside with a meatball sub, and he would hand it to him. He'd take bites of it in between moves.
Don Morocco looks like a picture of everyone's dad in 1983. Like he's just like kind of high. He's got the Budweiser looking shirt on. Like he feels like he needs to be next to like a Spitfire car on blocks.
Just out of frame is shorts with rainbow piping.
Yeah.
He's amazing. He's absolutely amazing. And there's 2 stages to Don Morocco. There's the Coke promos and the pot promos.
Oh my
they're
God,
2
this is amazing.
distinct things, and they're both an adventure. The pot one's hilarious. The Coke one's intense. He gets Cooper guys, as you say. He takes you on a journey. But the thing that's very important is that he didn't script a single thing.
No, it was a beautiful promo.
Different. That's what's different from wrestling nowadays than in the past, where they micromanage promos now. This guy did a key bump, and he went out
and then just went out there and gave a Oscar-worthy performance.
When you hear the door slam shut, when you hear the lock click, you're gonna know. You're gonna know that all around you, you're in my crystal palace, brother. Because I feel very perfectly comfortable when I get locked in. I do.
The Magnificent Morocco and Superfly Jimmy Snuka locked inside the 15-foot-high steel cage.
But the Hanma match, the Ishii match, it's on DailyMotion. Y'all should check it out.
No, it's a really good one. It's a really, really good one.
Are we ready for round 3?
I think we're ready for Goodnight.
Well, I'll say one thing, though. It's good that we've turned some people on to Don Morocco tonight.
Yeah.
That's MURACO, you understand?
Survival!
American dream. He's just a common man, working hard with his hands. He's just a common man, working hard for the man. Hey, he's American dream. Hey, he's American dream.
Well, I see. Where should we start, I guess? Would it be with the good match? You understand?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The good match, the match that I chose was a necessary match, I felt. Because people gotta understand wrestling ain't just fun and games for children.
No, sometimes it's horrifyingly brutal things.
Exactly.
Sometimes it's
You
hostile.
showed us a snuff film, Goodnight.
Wrestling is a snuff film with Greg the Hammer Valentine in it, and that makes it that much better. Wrestling is serious fucking business. So I showed them from the 1983, the first Starrcade, the famous dog collar match between Roddy Piper and Craig the Hammer Valentine. Now, I have shown people this match before, just to see the looks on their faces.
When Roddy's ear falls off.
Oh, I think before ears even start falling off, I think just when they're wrapping chains around faces,
I think when they put the chains on people before you even really start the match, when you just see how dirty the ring is.
Oh, the ring is already covered in blood.
And then the rest of the match is the rest of the card, I should say, was wrestled in the blood from all the preceding matches.
Jesus
so when
Christ.
Ric Flair wins that famous championship that night off of Harley Race, they're wrestling in everyone else that night's blood, including their own, because they bleed too.
When they have the chains wrapped around their eyes and their mouths, it looks like the cover of a Scorpions album.
It looks like a Clive Barker painting.
Yeah.
Like it's just these two naked men wrapping chains around each other. It looks like something Clive Barker in 1984 was like, what was that thing I watched and masturbated to a year ago? Yeah, the wrestling thing.
Is he like a wrestling artist?
He's the guy who wrote Hellraiser and did all the crazy like art that's like part demons, part like erotic stuff.
Like Geiger or something
Yeah,
like
same
that?
kind of feel.
We watched, great match there, Baylee.
Yeah.
But it was wall-to-wall nerds. The nerds that are ruining Brooklyn.
The audience shots at the NXT versus the NWA, real different.
The Japanese, even there, we failed to mention that one of the Japanese fans during the Hanma Ishii match was wearing a Feel the Burn shirt.
Yeah.
that's right.
I'm obsessed with that.
You know
that one person.
You know who wouldn't wear that? Every person in the audience for the NWA.
That's right. There was a man wearing.
The point.
It was a man wearing a suit, tie, and fedora sitting in the front row.
And also tons of women.
The women used to like
southern ass women.
Yeah, they were the ones who used to like wrestling, because I remember we were talking about that women used to like wrestling, but I think that was a southern thing, because I don't think they did that in
Well, where else are they going to see like half naked dudes in good shape and stuff? I feel like maybe that's part of it.
I think Top Gun is still many years away at that point.
Well, no, there was men's, because remember Wilt Chamberlain was doing the men's volleyball thing.
Oh, yeah.
In those regions, if you wanted to see, burly men partially clothed, the best you could do was watching the guys lug feed at the feed store, and they were usually, burly and mulleted and mustached. It was not as good looking as Greg the Hammer Valentine.
Greg the Hammer Valentine is a nightmare man.
Oh, Greg Valentine is one of my favorites. Neighbor Frank was a huge Greg Valentine.
He looks like he has an entire bag of pizza dough wrapped around his existing neck.
He looks like a cigar store Indian.
He looks like he has another person that he shoved inside of him.
Yeah. He looks like Vincent D'Onofrio after he gets the alien in him in Men in Black.
Yeah.
He's got the rolls of the neck. Oh, God.
It looks like he's got extra skin in case he hits something at a high speed. His whole body is an airbag.
Well, that is something worth mentioning. You know, the good old days, you know, when they said what was the wrestler's physique? Long blonde hair, muscle arms, and a pot belly.
Yeah, beer
because
gut.
in those days, it wasn't as much as bodybuildery as it would later.
Yeah, well, also there was...
It was starting to get that way even then.
Do you know what would have been great with watching this match? And I was thinking it the whole time, because it's literally, for anybody trying to understand, it's
Some Bloody Marys?
two men with dog collars on and a chain connecting them that's about, what would you say, 12 feet long?
Yeah, looks
so
to be
that
about
if they
12 feet.
move, they're trying to drag the other person with them.
By the neck.
But it also, the closer you get, the more chain you have to whip at the other person's face to make them bleed.
Or wrap around your fist and punch them with.
them in the face and destroy
Piper
Rowdy
was doing
Piper's
left
ear.
and right.
See, that's the magic of a chain match, like that dog collar match.
And then, but like watching it, I'm like, you know what this needs is the score from Planet of the Apes. Like that should be playing over this.
I would pay to watch.
If you cut away and it was all ape men watching this, like I would not be shocked. Like, oh, this is from another time.
The ring announcer is Dr. Zayas or something like that. I would enjoy the hell out of that. Bright Eyes comes.
Bright Eyes, yeah.
General Ursus, remember him? He was a hell of an ape. He was my favorite. But that's not story for another time. But I gotta say, I showed this intentional because the point is, there was a time when it was about old men, women who wanted to see the wrestlers, little kids, and rednecks. And it was the people with the beers in their hands that put their butts in the seats.
One of the things that I think it was Kyle that pointed out was the amount of cigarette butts around the ring.
Yeah.
It was there was blood on the mat, blood on the canvas. But you go outside and it's just cigarette butts and Budweiser cans.
As an American, when I watch something like that, I want to cry for what we've lost as a country. That we don't have things like this anymore.
Yeah, I'm
Blood
super
spatter.
happy we don't have these things anymore.
Blood spatter
I found
and
that
the
match quite disturbing.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
A little upsetting.
I'll be honest, that one's not for the
I
ladies.
couldn't watch most of it. It was too brutal.
Continue, Natalie. I'd like to know more.
You did, on the other hand, do you want to show them your notes where you drew?
I was just drawing because I
yourself
didn't.
chained up.
No, I drew the guy chained up.
One of the things that Goodnight, the show that he picked was Starrcade, from Starrcade '83, which was the first, like, one of the first mega shows, and it was held in Greensboro, South Carolina, or
North Carolina.
North Carolina, and that's like maybe 250,000 people there.
Yeah.
It filled a 17,000 seat arena there, so there was a large portion of the city there.
Most of the city was there.
And there was a 2-mile long traffic jam of people that wanted to get into the show that couldn't.
Really?
Yeah.
It's also crazy when you look at it when we were rewinding through, like how many people who would go on to be huge wrestling stars as the 80s would go along were also on that show.
Well, they were already big stars in wrestling then. It's just, you go up to McMahon's. That match was actually in the twilight of the old days. It was only about a couple of months before Hulk Hogan would become the WWF World Champion. Roddy Piper, who was the good guy in the match, would come into the WWF as a bad guy just a couple of months.
And I had no
Greg
idea.
Valentine too, exactly, and he would become the Intercontinental Champion.
And he also teamed with Brutus the Barber Beefcake, so it was a weird mixture of Greg the Hammer Valentine and a male stripper.
Yeah, the Dream Team. And then later on, they made him a funny wrestler. And remember the Honky Tonk Man?
I bet he was hilarious.
Well, there was a guy called the Honky Tonk Man, and he would dress like Elvis and all this.
I'm the Honky Tonk Man.
I'm cool, I'm cocky, I'm bad. And then later on, they had Greg Valentine dye his hair black and gave him an Elvis jumpsuit too, and they called the two of them Rhythm and Blues.
God.
So this is happening at the same time as dog collar matches.
No, that was a few years
later. That was later? Okay.
It was really a lot of the big changes.
A
lot of the big changes with Vince McMahon, like coming and like making his wrestling way bigger than everybody else's. That hadn't happened yet, but it's like that twilight right before it happens. Because the big bang for the WWF is really, January, I think it's 23rd, 1984, when Hulk Hogan wins the World Championship.
From the Sheik, right?
It's like almost a month later from this match.
It is, because this was, I think, around,
Christmas,
was it Thanksgiving or
It was
Christmas?
like November.
Yeah, I think it might have been Thanksgiving. It was in Starrcade, usually Thanksgiving of 1983. So Piper and even Valentine, within a couple of months, would be in the WWF.
So on the flip side, then we just watched the shittiest wrestling match of all time.
This is the hands down the worst match I've ever seen.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I figured I'd show you actually what a shitty match looks like. Not shitty because it's booked shitty.
Because like when we watch Rivers' shitty one, it's still an entertaining. It's a piece of entertainment.
Yeah.
Still. This was like a thing that happened instead of what was supposed to happen.
Y'all guys,
there was no cross dressing. There was no puerile humor. This was just meat on meat.
So it was two bodybuilders.
That's the point, because see, the matches you watch were all bad because of a certain gimmick or a certain somebody overdid it.
Yeah,
but
and
this
I
was
shitty in the way the Lord intended.
Yeah, this is when two guys just don't want to perform. So it was two big muscle guys. It was Tony Atlas, who was nearing the end of his WWF run, and a guy named Ted Arcidi, who was chiefly famous because he had an action figure, but he was an ex strongman guy, and he was there for like a minute in 1986, and he was a hometown guy because he was from Boston, and this was a Boston Garden.
He found a way to get Boston to boo a person from Boston,
which is a big deal because there used to be a jobber called the Duke of Dorchester, Pete Doherty, who was from Dorchester, which is right south of Boston, and he would get pops the size of Hulk Hogan at the Boston Garden. So them booing a Boston guy means just how bad this match is. And you may ask, what makes this Tony Atlas versus Ted Arcidi match so bad? What happens when you put two guys in the ring and you ring the bell and they're both like, I don't know, what do you want to do? I don't know, what do you want to do? So, they have their tests of strength.
They've had all day to think about this.
No one studied for this test.
What's crazy is, and they probably were in the car, like, because you have to drive from town to town, and they didn't.
It could have come up, but instead they're like, I'm really getting into REO Speedway.
No, it's the wrestling equivalent of when you and your girlfriend are arguing over what to get for dinner.
I was literally just about to say that.
Neither person knows what to say.
That's hilarious.
I'm going to use this as symbolism every time we do that.
Yeah, we're like Tony Atlas and Ted Arcidi.
You remember before?
Which one of you is? Are you?
She's Tony Atlas. Let's be real.
Who's that?
But when we talked earlier about
so much interest in this match.
Well, what was great though, eventually they fall out of the thing. We get to see all the cigarette butts on the ground. Yep. They go into the audience and injure a child while wrestling shitty. Like that kid broke his leg having two shitty wrestlers be shitty on top of him.
I wonder if there was a lawsuit about that, because there were lawsuits occasionally back then over things like that.
There were two things that I really enjoyed when we were watching this match. One was that for many times while watching the match, we thought that the internet had cut out and stopped.
And was buffering.
Just been standing there not moving at all.
But no, they were standing there not moving at all because we'd hear the announcer going, "Oh, it's a real test of strength,"
Yeah.
And the other part was that Natalie stepped out for 2 minutes. When she came back in, they were doing the same lockup spot.
Yeah, they were
literally 2 minutes. They were just standing there wrestling like a couple of bears, but not moving. Not moving at all.
Yeah, just standing upright with their arms pretzeled together.
There was announcing on the match because it was televised on Nessun. And the announcers were Gorilla Monsoon and Lord Alfred Hayes, who were two mainstays of WWF commentary.
Well, it's great because by the end of the match,
they start shitting on the match because it's so bad.
And they start getting snarky, and then by the end, because they both lose.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert: no one wins.
Double count out.
That most satisfying a wrestling.
Turns out, once you've both broken a child's leg, it's like, let's call the match.
Ladies and gentlemen, the referee has counted both men out of the ring. A double count out.
Both men counted outside the ring. They could have been out there. Well, I don't know. Maybe they shouldn't have put the ring up to begin with. I don't know. These two big guys just wasn't much. Oh, now the belts come off. It's a little late now. The match is over.
We shouldn't have even
put the ring up.
Yeah, we shouldn't have even set up the ring.
I think that was Gorilla. And then it's like, and then at the end, after the bell, they feign this thing where they were both wearing weightlifting belts for some reason, which they now take off and throw to the ground.
Yeah.
And they make like they're going to go at it, but then they don't, and they shake
Yeah, and then
hands.
they shake
everybody
hands.
Boos.
Yeah. Ooh.
And Gorilla Monsoon says they've expended more energy on that than they did during the entire match.
Yeah, and when they start booing, one of the announcers is like, yes, they seem pretty mad about this. Like they're sort of like giving a thumbs up to the audience for booing the show.
When you hear them like announce the end, the double count out, there's like, nothing, and then there's just a general from the crowd.
The crowd moos at them.
One of the other famous things that Ted Arcidi did, and it was from a Piper's Pit. So Roddy Piper had an interview segment, most famously on Piper's Pit. He hit Jimmy Snuka with a coconut.
Was there lime in the coconut?
But in one episode of Piper's Pit, Ted Arcidi shows up and he is coked out of his mind. He's on so much coke and he's like vibrating. He's like sweating and vibrating and he can't speak English. He's that coked up. And Roddy Piper's like, hey, could you show us a feat of strength? And he picks up like one of those pressboard IKEA coffee tables and he just lifts it over his head and he's like, ah! And Roddy Piper just stands there completely perplexed, like, what the hell is this? You know? A guy that we just watched lose hearing getting smashed by like a dog chain.
Yeah. Just briefly going back to that. It literally looks like he was shot in the head.
Yeah.
Like that's what it looks like.
So much blood.
Piper.
Well, the whole thing, I mean, hell, like I say, the main event of that card was Ric Flair versus Harley Race.
Oh, and that one was brutal too, I'm sure.
End of the match, Ric Flair, he has the crimson. He gives a post-match interview after he wins the championship, and he's got blood all over his face. And it's one of those old-fashioned kind of things where it's not like a wrestling style, limousine riding, jet flying type interview. It's one of those ones where it's trying to be like sports, where he's like, thank Jim Crockett Promotions, I want to thank the NWA, and he's got red all over his face and hair, and he looks like Frankenstein because he's covered in blood, and he's just giving one of those dumb interviews like ball players give after they just get off the field.
And then finally, let's get to the promo.
Oh, the promo.
One of my favorites.
$1 Million Man.
Yep, Ted DiBiase. Everybody has a price for the $1 Million Man.
$1 Million
We
Man.
learned that tonight.
That was the most uncomfortable thing I've ever watched.
What was the uncomfortable part? The part where Ted DiBiase has a slave named Virgil? Was that the uncomfortable part?
Or when they asked a young black child to dribble a basketball for money.
And points out that his family
Or when he
is
points
poor.
out, he's like, I bet your family could use this money.
Yeah, just look at you. Your family could definitely use $500.
When you're Ted DiBiase, everyone else
Everyone
would
is
use
poor.
the money.
Yes.
That's true. Yeah.
Now,
granted,
the
that-
$1 Million Man
He doesn't
you know
erase-
is wealthy because he has dollar signs on both of his lapels and a larger dollar sign on the back of
And
his
a
jacket.
cummerbund.
And he has a manservant. He can skirt the 13th Amendment because he has so much
Now,
money.
I don't want to rock the boat. I feel like maybe the $1 Million Man isn't actually a millionaire.
Yeah.
No, actually, interesting thing. The $1 Million Man. This was a gimmick that was created by Vince McMahon because this was essentially the gimmick that Vince McMahon
Wanted for
as
himself.
a professional wrestler. So he gave it to Ted
That's
DiBiase.
insane.
Wow.
So Vince McMahon clearly had a notebook where it was a picture of himself with dollar signs all over it.
And a Kenny Rogers beard.
I would say, but this is the good old days when no one would have bought a ticket to go to a wrestling event and see Vince McMahon.
Yeah, but what he would do was that in order to keep up the impression that he was the $1 Million Man, he would give Ted DiBiase insane amounts of disposable income, like a per diem of like a couple of $1,000s a day that he would just spend or like just flaunt money around. He stayed in 5-star hotels away from everybody else. They maintained the image.
That's
like he would
insane.
travel in like limousines and stuff like that, and it was like to maintain the kayfabe of the fact that he was a $1 Million Man. And that was Vince McMahon's total vision of what he'd be as a professional wrestler. And when he would come to the ring, he would be announced from his summer residence in Hyannisport or his winter residence in West Palm Beach. So he actually was like globetrotting as well.
Actually, do you remember that show that was big in the 80s, Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous?
That's
Robin
all
Leach.
his thing is.
Yeah, with Robin Leach, the shouting Australian. But they actually, I don't
Champagne
know how
wishes, caviar dreams.
Yeah, I don't know how Vince pulled this off, but he actually had DiBiase on an episode of that.
Really?
Yeah.
He's the man they love to hate.
Some call him the most despicable wrestler to ever strut into the ring. He always gives the sucker an even break. That's break as in fracture.
How rich is the $1 Million Man? Well, how many gallons of water are in the ocean? How many grains of sand on a beach? I'm loaded.
But they went to like a fake house, I imagine.
Probably, yeah. I mean, I don't recall.
It's just Hearst Castle, and they assume no one's going to know.
Or maybe they rented out one of them Newport mansions or something. But it did exist because I saw it with my own two eyes.
And Virgil was following them around the entire time just to maintain the level of uncomfortableness.
Oh yeah, because
and
DiBiase's
in the
money,
promo, the $1 Million Man offers this kid $500 if he can dribble a basketball 15 times. The kid gets to 14, and the $1 Million Man kicks the basketball away, and then just goes, "Fuck you, little kid," and walks away.
The kid is
and then television just keeps going. It's this timid child.
He taught the kid a lesson.
God.
Sometimes your best just isn't good enough.
They found the most sympathetic kid. He is such a cute little kid, and oh my God, it's just heartbreaking when he kicks the basketball away from him.
When I first saw that in 1987, I had happiness like I'd never had in my life. And I think I laughed for about 15 minutes straight.
If you can dribble this basketball 15 times consecutively without missing, look at here, I'm going to give you $500. Now, I know you and your family can use $500. I can tell by looking at you that you could use a lot more than $500.
Because that's real heat, man.
I loved it.
That little kid was so adorable.
I heard they had to pay him in real life.
I'm
just busted up over it.
Well, yeah, of course, yeah, no.
He was busted up over it. That was the agreement.
Yeah.
Pay $500 just to dribble a basketball for Ted DiBiase and have him kick it because that's how badass he was.
Yeah, see, and I know I've been watching enough wrestling at this point because my thought was like, man, I can't wait for somebody to hit that guy with a brick.
You've got it. Yeah, that's
turned me into a monster man.
That's pretty much.
The $1 Million Man.
I hope Stone Cold rolls in on a Zamboni and hits $1 Million Man with a brick.
That's
Interestingly,
it was Randy Savage and
there we go.
Hogan
Okay,
that were
as long as the
taken
hero was doing that.
But later, Stone Cold he entered the WWF originally as the ringmaster, and he was Ted DiBiase's $1 Million champion. So they actually were in cahoots at the beginning of his WWF career.
And Ted DiBiase he found Jesus after his evil ways of being the $1 Million.
I saw him at Freedom 98, which was a Methodist convention held at the University Activity Center at Auburn, and I went just because the $1 Million Man was the speaker, and I got there, I was like, oh fuck, is this gonna be Jesus shit the whole time? I have a signed picture of Ted DiBiase somewhere. I should probably be telling that story on stage, shouldn't I?
Oh. Yes, you should.
That's a true thing.
The service is going to be Jesus shit the whole time.
Well, then he gave a goddamn sermon. I was like, thought he was going to be kicking basketballs.
What did you think when you went to a church? For Christ's
It wasn't a church. It was Auburn University.
Remember, Rivers had already been taught that there are PlayStations inside of church.
That's true. I got all the wrong messages. There's going to be the $1 Million Man. There's going to be an N64. Methodism really fucked with me, man.
The $1 Million Man actually has a sermon that was on Trinity Broadcasting where he chastises Steve Austin for doing a takeoff on John 3:16.
What?
Yeah.
Dude, that's not nearly as bad as kicking a basketball away from a small kid.
Jared did that too.
Okay, Sean, 15 times. Ready, go. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Oops! Oh. We didn't get to 15, Sean. You didn't get to 15, did you? No. He didn't make 15. And you know what that means? What that means, Sean, is you've got to learn a hard, cruel fact of life. When you don't do the job right, you don't get paid.
I think the fact that he's a Christian makes, for me, Ted DiBiase even more one of my heroes.
So to wrap up, you guys, let's go one by one. I think I want to start with Kyle.
All right.
What did we learn?
I feel like the thing I've picked up most from this, first of all, is that the wrestling aspect of wrestling is far and away probably the least interesting part of this.
Yeah, of course.
No, not the least interesting. I would say not the thing that's going to suck you in.
Well, that's always kind of
because
been its gimmick.
Even when I was watching the Japanese match and the chain match, which were probably like the two most amazing like pieces of wrestling, and the NXT, all three of your good matches.
Yeah,
the wrestling was great. But the thing that pulled me into it was the narrative.
Yeah.
And without that narrative, it's just like two people sort of running around a thing kind of pointlessly.
Yeah.
But between all of them, there was such a narrative to it that you get invested in the dance because of the characters involved and the stakes that are created, and that gives the physicality of it a feeling. If somebody breaks out of a tap, but there's not like the stakes of it at hand, then it doesn't mean anything. But every time on like the Japanese one, every time you get to that second count and they would bust through again, it would be insane. Or like when you're watching the Roddy Piper fight and he wins, but then the other guy starts effing him up after the count, and you just hear the people like screaming in horror.
Oh yeah, that's the thing that we didn't talk about is how real everybody there thought that it actually was.
That was real. Most fans, people always knew wrestling was fake, but wrestling fans always thought the shit was real.
Yeah.
Especially up before like the internet. After the internet, then all the fans know it's fake, and that's why you get all those little prissy bastards nowadays that like to bum rush the show with their dork chants and all this other shit. If two wrestlers trying to work and you're going to mess with their work with a chant, you deserve David Schultz to come up and slap you in the face.
I would agree with that, except for when the one group was yelling, Sasha is ratchet, and then Sasha's fans were yelling, no she's not. That was fucking brilliant, because Rivers had to point out that it's two different slogans back and
it's
forth.
half the crowd.
They're so elaborate.
It's summer
now.
camp.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, the people that go to wrestling now are all just like wrestling nerds. So the chants and things have become so elaborate.
I find that there's a charm to both, because I could totally see like how you become a wrestling nerd, but as a person who is just obsessed with the dinge of the 70s, like just a cigarette butt strewn, blood-stained canvas, also like full of just like murderous people believing a lie, has a poetic beauty.
Well, let me tell you something. You know, one of the reasons I showed you the dog collar match? Superstar Billy Graham said, American professional wrestling is about violence. And I wanted to prove that true tonight.
Interesting.
Well, what you were describing, we'd call ring psychology. So, that's
so that was fascinating. It's also interesting that the intense highs and lows of it. And it's interesting because like sports entertainment as a concept is the place where sports and like narrative combine, right? But are also hampered by the fact that the people who go into this are sociopath monsters. Like all of them, the good ones, the bad ones.
Yeah,
I don't think they're monsters. They seem like people are just trying to get like attention, and
they're super athletic comics.
It's like being at a carnival. It's one of them kind of jobs. It's like it's a dirty job, but if you can make a lot of money, but whether you have an education or not.
But there's definitely like it's interesting to watch where like whether we're looking at the Heartbreak Kid or CM Punk versus like Hulk Hogan or whichever direction you go with it. Like the it's fascinating to watch where like the reality narrative and the narrative of the kayfabe stuff sort of blur into this weird line. Yeah, which to me, as an outsider, is probably the most interesting thing, is watching where those two things sort of blur together.
They do that a lot intentionally nowadays because with the internet they can't keep stuff secret like they used to, so they intentionally blur the lines a lot now.
But when it's good, there is a suspension of disbelief.
Well, that was that's the CM Punk thing, because it was ultimately they were like they handed him a mic and like do whatever you want, and it's this exact way of riding the line where it's like, oh, he's still selling tickets, but he's also genuinely airing out grievances.
I think that we almost come all the way back to the beginning where we started, which is that it is a carnival. It's carnies. Like there's that sense of like it is a carnival and it is an entertainment you go in, but like you do not have control at all. Like they control the vertical, they control the horizontal.
Pro wrestling is like being an orchestra conductor from Mass Psychology.
Yes,
a whole bunch of people,
absolutely.
and you can just fool with their emotions like nothing.
Kyle, you got it.
Kyle, but
you got
seem
it.
to have got all the points.
You have graduated.
I feel like my final thoughts before we is that I feel like it's interesting because I also feel like after watching wrestling, I've finally gained an appreciation for wrestling as a concept, and yet still hate the Attitude Era with the same passion that I did before.
That's
We agree on a lot of things.
We showed you the bottom of the barrel.
Pumping a dumpster.
We showed you the bottom of the barrel.
As far as I can tell, there's nothing good about it.
That's like basing your entire opinion on stand-up comedy on open mics.
There's still some good stuff in there.
Oh, come on.
I've seen better stuff at open mics than at evening gown match.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Yeah.
But then again, but that said, to be fair, there was also some Undertaker stuff during that era.
Yeah,
That even I
some of the Undertaker stuff is badass. A lot of the Stone Cold Steve Austin stuff is
Mankind,
badass.
Stone Cold. I mean, all the people you've heard of from the Attitude Era put
All
on
the Mick
amazing
Foley
shit.
stuff is great.
DX might be a little overrated, but other than that,
pushing a dumpster.
early DX is pretty good. When
it's just
started
Michaels,
become
You're never
like an
going to sell me
entire game.
on the suck it crotch chop guys.
No,
That's
well,
just-
the thing about DX was they were always, when they were good, it was when they were villains.
Yeah.
And then later when they actually got over with the crowd, that's when they turned super lame. But when they were villains who were just losing all the time.
Mosh and Thrasher, the headbangers, or the Disciples of Apocalypse,
God.
not so much.
Oh, Jesus, the fucking headbangers. Real men wear dresses. Fuck me.
So Matt, continue.
Sorry, Matt.
I gotta start watching wrestling again.
Dude.
I might start watching some of this Japanese shit.
That was
Everybody's
good.
sold on that
was
one now.
really good.
So you're absolutely all of you invited to come here and watch pay-per-views. We do this all the time.
Let me know. I'd go to that.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I'm
Survivor
I'm
Series.
down, man.
Let me know when
week
the
from
Royal
tomorrow.
Rumble is. I'll go to that.
The Rumble was
tomorrow.
actually, you'll love that shit. It's fucking crazy and fun.
I like that. 'cause
When do
it's-
Rumbles happen again? Is it
The Rumble is January.
I just broke Rivers' TV last Rumble.
I'm excited to watch Pat watch something fresh because
Oh, yeah.
the other thing I've picked up from this, like, no one is more viscerally reacts to wrestling than Pat Riley. Like you can't hold it back. Like you are there, and it takes you to this very strange place because you are such a refined and calculated man, and then the wrestling clearly taps into your caveman parts.
Well, all you need to do is read Roland Barthes' The Wild World of Wrestling, and you will know.
I will totally read that.
I loved how we were watching a match and you would step outside to have a cigarette, and there's no open windows, no open doors. It's a completely closed off wall, and we can hear you out there
Often doing a Hulk Hogan.
Hulkamania.
Well, to be fair, Goodnight was out there.
Well, yeah.
I wasn't talking to myself. Doing Hulk Hogan promos, which would really be problematic nowadays.
I at some point, maybe when we're done doing this and just bringing it up for just a moment and watching just a minute of it, I want to show you and Natalie an old death match from Japan, because you think that what we watched was bloody and barbaric. The shit that was going on in those matches is insane.
I think I'm
almost
good after the dog collar match.
Dude, everything is covered in barbed
That's
wire.
different.
There's literally explosives.
Fire.
in the ring.
Dog collar match was sports. That stuff's just garbage wrestling.
I mean, it goes over the top, Matt, because there were those death matches where they would have they'd have an aquarium full of piranhas. And there was the one that put the other guy in the aquarium full of piranhas. There was a match called It was a Japanese one, and usually whenever they kind of translate stuff over from Japanese to English, it's always a little bit touch and go. Things get lost in translation. There was one called an anus explosion match.
Go on. Do they have bottle rockets in their buttholes?
Exactly. The winner
Yeah,
is the one
called it.
that put fireworks in the other one's butt and lit them off.
I wish there was a video component to this, because Natalie just made a
Pat
classic
just made
thing.
sure that 3 people are never going to be wrestling.
I love that shit. It's so ridiculous.
So
that's Matt's psyche right there.
Yeah.
Can we close on Natalie?
Let's close with Natalie. I think you're the demographic they're after now. So
Yeah, and I was about to say, out of all the things we watched, I definitely liked the newer stuff way better. I felt like it was more
Yeah.
accessible. There's no blood.
Right, there's less blood.
It feels
Which this is funny because you did our Halloween episode.
I know.
Like 2 weeks
It's
ago.
just ultimately, like, I know it's fake and it's
Yeah.
staged, but it's ultimately really hard for me to watch, like,
Real
people
blood.
hurt each other, and it just makes me, like, super upset and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I don't think the old stuff is necessarily for me because I'm squeamish. But
you could get into the NXT stuff, right?
yeah, probably. Yeah, and I get the appeal now. I feel like I have a better appreciation that's really just about spectacle, and it's just kind of fun. That's
Yeah.
really all it boils down to, I feel.
So yeah, I mean, it's like they were saying, mass psychology is making the whole crowd go like, oh, god damn it, oh, like that, over and over for however long the match is. Like,
There's also an amount of fun, and I think anybody can share in this, of when you're watching something, you could clearly be like, oh, that was fake. He didn't really hit him there. You could see the punch missed, and he fake took it, whatever. But then you catch that moment when they put the person's fingers between the stairs.
Sasha put Bailey's fingers in between the stairs and kicked the steps.
The thing, and then you're just like, oh fuck! I know this is fake, but like, how?
Yeah. Oh,
how was that the origin there?
Days, it was even because the thing is, nowadays, if you know about wrestling, you kind of know how they do the moves and things. But in the old days, it was like, I know this isn't real, but I don't understand how they're doing this without hurting each other more.
Yeah.
And the emotion of people winning is real if a match is really good. And I remember one of the matches distinctly when I was a kid. It was a match between Ron Simmons and Big Van Vader. And Big Van Vader was the champion. He was like a 450-pound guy. You know, Frankie Stechino's dad, if you're inclined to Boy Meets World.
God, that's a good episode.
It really is.
Yeah, the Sweet 16.
Look, he's got to go to Topanga's Sweet 16 party, but they also got to help Frankie Stechino reconnect with his dad, so they do the classic Flintstones Water Buffalo Pebbles birthday party switcheroo.
So one of the things is that and Ron Simmons, they had a drawing because Sting couldn't wrestle, and Ron Simmons won the drawing to face Vader for the championship. And it was, and Ron Simmons was a former football player, All-American at Florida State, has number retired. He's also African American, and at that time there hadn't been a black heavyweight champion. And it was in Baltimore. It was a random show. It wasn't for TV. And Ron Simmons defeats Vader. It's something that never happened. It was just out of the blue. He defeats Vader. And one of the things I remember distinctly, I watched this when I was a kid. There's a kid that he must have been a teenager. He runs down from his seat, he just runs down the stairs when Ron Simmons hits that power slam, and 1, 2, 3, and the first shot that they show after Ron Simmons raising his hands in victory was this kid crying.
Yeah,
this kid was crying, and it was beautiful because it was and the whole crowd was going insane because there was that sort of element where it was just like, this guy's hero won, and he did something that wrongly. Was something that had never been done before. Essentially, he broke, a long-standing color line in wrestling, and that sort of reaction is one of the cool things in wrestling.
Yeah.
That was not in the WWF, but in NWA/WCW once again.
Yeah, WWE to date still has not had a black champion.
Well, you could count.
Unless you're counting The Rock, who's like 1/3 white, black, and Samoan.
I would count that though.
But people of color have won, but a straight up African American guy.
Tony Atlas, who we saw in that wonderful match, is actually with Rocky Johnson. The Rock's dad was part of the first black WWF Tag Team Champions.
Yeah, so we're all just waiting on the New Day to win their Freebird Rules shared World Championship. New Day rocks. Yeah,
I agree.
Fuck yeah.
I don't think it sucks. I think they're great and they're positive people.
Unicorn power, baby. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This has been the crossover spectacular of the what did we say?
This is Woods.
This is the Woods. Thank you for listening to part 2. If you haven't checked out part 1, go listen to that over at This Is Rad. Please subscribe to them, give them 5 stars, and then head over to
Rad Pod on Twitter.
That's right. Yeah. And then you can head over to iTunes, give The Goods from the Woods 5 stars, say something nice about us. We love that. And follow us on Twitter at The Goods Pod. And we're on Facebook.
Can I do my Gordon Solie at the end?
Facebook.com/TheGoodsPod. We'll take you out with a song now. This is Lydia Lovelace, and the song is called Chris Isaac.
So long from the Sunshine State.
Well, you know I don't drive, but honey, if I did,
The Goods from the Woods was mixed, edited, and distributed by me, Rivers Langley. You can find the show on Twitter at The Goods Pod. Our theme song was composed by DJ Smiles. Check him out on Twitter at DJ Smiles.